Hey, good evening, Cape Flats Stories. Goeienaand, Cape Flats Stories. Hoop het gaan goed saam met julle. Tonight I've got very important people with me. A reverend, a pastor, and an elder. Ek weet nie of hulle titles is nie, maar hulle is hierso. And we're going to talk about things that really matters, in the community. We're going to talk about that topic that almal voor bang is. The cake. Was, I posted something last night and everybody was like, leave the church alone, don't talk about the church. But I've got men with me that feels the same, and I know there's many more men and women out there that feels that we should address things. Many churches has turned into cults. It's not the church anymore where you can actually say you are being, you are going to a spiritual institution. It's more like, you belong to a certain cult. And we want to talk about things like that. And with me, I've got Dennis in the studio. I've got Reverend Oscar Bogart, very well known. I've got Adrian Kearns with us as well. And we're going to talk about these things. And you guys are welcome to comment, to leave a comment in the comment section and chat with us. We're not going to point fingers at any church, but we're just going to look at things that, that stands out for us and that we need to talk about. Reverend and Brother Dennis, welcome. Welcome tonight.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Stan. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for making yourself available. I know you're busy, men, but thank you for being here. But just introduce yourself, Dennis. We as Dennis, and let people just know more about yourself and what you do, Dennis.
Okay, yeah, Dennis, born and bred in Bridgetown on the Cape Flats, Athlone area. Started an organization recently called Men Stand Tall. And the reason why the organization had started is because we as men, we are not walking in the image and likeness of God. So people see us as the gender-based violence men. They see us as gangsters, as rapists, as drug dealers. And Men Stand Tall has started so that we address those kind of things where men are seen as walking in the image and likeness of God, firstly in their homes and then their community, society, etc., etc. Yeah, that's just me in
Thank you
short.
thank you so much, Dennis. Reverend Oscar, just introduce yourself. I think baie mense ken vir Reverend Oscar, but maybe you can just, from yourself, introduce yourself.
Yeah, good evening, guys. Thank you for the opportunity to chat with you guys. Yeah, my name is Reverend Oscar Peter Bogart. I'm the senior pastor of Calvary Baptist Church. We are an independent fundamental Baptist church. So let me say it out there. We are not Southern Baptists like most of the churches in South Africa that are Baptists. We are independent fundamental Baptist church. In other words, ons praat net soos dit is, ons steek dit nie weg nie. As 'n pastoor hoor, dan sê ons hy hoor. And if things goes wrong, we say it as it is. I also head up a NGO that's called War on Hunger. We are trying to feed as many children possible, and then we also look at gangsterism and all these type of wickedness that goes in the communities, as well as I also address problems in churches, and that is something that I actually love. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Adrian, just the introduction to yourself as well. You're also very busy in the community doing a lot, so maybe just tell the people more about yourself, brother.
Thanks, Dan. Evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm Adrian Kearns, and I'm born and bred and still very much a product of a Nova Park, much known as a community with stigmatism attached to it as for all the wrong reasons. I'm a product from that community, and I'm not a success story. I'm a human being that believes that through the grace of God and through the ability to believe that is better than what I see around. I've managed to navigate through all that, and Nova Park brings you as a young person growing up in the Church of the Nazarene. I think for me, it's just being a husband and a father. I think I think Dennis said something as he introduced himself, that the principle of the Bible says as a man, family, your family unit strong.
Okay.
Because that's
I think
where the church and the community is built, based on family principles. So that's who I am, and look forward to the conversation as men in the community.
okay.
Else, please.
Okay. There we go. Guys, I see Andre just joined us now. Andre, welcome. Welcome. We've just introduced ourselves now, Andre. Maybe you can just introduce yourself also.
Yo, I'm tired now. I have to run, guys. Sorry now. I'm Andre Skeppers, for those that don't know. Boitjie van die East Streets met ons play. En dis iets wat baie na in my hart staan, en ek en Stan ken nou mekaar nou al 'n rukkie. Pleased to meet you, brother Dennis. Pastor Oscar ken ons maar nou, ons nou ook van Facebook en van die Daily Voice daar af. So sorry Annes, weer eens brother Adrian, welkom en ek hoop ons het 'n gesellige tyd vanaand. Amen.
Awesome, awesome. Gentlemen, I see Reverend just left us now, but I want to talk about something. Ons begin by die begin, man. You know, a lot of people have messaged me, and people think you're lying, and you guys can maybe back me up there, but there's people that have really a concern for what's happening in the church. You hear daily of men sleeping around, taking advantage of our females. Now, okay, the females is also to blame, right? We also have to blame the females as well, because they know what they're getting themselves into, you know. And I want to ask you guys, how do we keep these men you know, when you do something wrong, you have to be, you know, jy moet na die boeke toe gebring word. Hoe hou ons die manne accountable? Because I think everybody's doing what they want in the church, but there's nobody really looking after the people. I mean, I heard of stories of young girls that had to leave university, go work for another pastor, and he didn't pay them. He abused them. Andre, I think you are aware of that, and Adrian as well. And this guy, and this topic we will cover tomorrow. The people will be in the studio as well. So I want to ask you guys, how do we keep these men accountable? Because everybody say, touch not the anointed, do not harm my prophets. But the problem is, when these men mess up in the church, maybe not once or twice, several times, how do we attack them? Not attack them, but how do we bring them to book? Anyone can answer that. Oh, start.
Hello.
Hey, Reverend,
Stan,
welcome.
I think
No, I see
word.
you well.
Dennis, maybe you can answer this one. I think we lost Andre.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Stan, man, I think we put the leaders in the church, like the pastors, like that. We put them on a pedestal, man. And we give them authority over us, right? But the pastor and the leaders of the church, they human beings also, man. I think of it like this. Let me put it just straight like this. The shepherd must lead the church, right? The shepherd listens to God, to Jesus. Jesus is the main shepherd. Then you have the shepherd of the church. Hy moet luister met God. Hy moet met God praat. The sheep don't talk to the to the shepherd. I never saw a sheep talking to the shepherd and telling the shepherd what to do. So the shepherd must be connected to Jesus and to God. And if he's not connected to God, then there's a problem that needs to be addressed. We can't be quiet and see a pastor continue to do it, but because he's a leader, we keep quiet. Those times of obey, man, that's past, man. That is long time past. The church is an institution now. It's not the church of God. The church of God is one that's impactful, that serves, that gives. But the church that we know as an institution is one that is just receiving. So we going on and we use scripture so out of context. We use, man, give and it will be given to you. Oh man, pressed down, shaken together, running over. Ons gaat nie die. So our giving is one of wanting to receive, but giving with a heart that doesn't want to receive, then you will experience that. And the church needs to come back to, why are we there? Are we there as an institution which then becomes an organization, or are we a church that is an organism, something that breathes life and gives life in our communities? You said it early on. Vandenberg, you can have 180 churches. How can that 180 churches not work with each other? Then you're not the church. That's just my take. And that comes with leaders in the church as well.
Brother Andre? Okay, I think we've lost Andre there. I don't know, Pastor Oscar, the question is, I don't know if you got the question. The question is, was, with the churches, men doing their things in the churches, nobody's keeping them accountable. And the problem has now occurred many years. See, a man mos nie teken, maar niemand spreek vir hom aan nie, because hulle het nie die hoe kan ek sê, hulle kan nie die man aanspreek nie, van die man het 'n rand in die teken. How do we bring these guys to book? Baie van hulle mors, and you know what they do. So wat sal u voorstel moet gemeente doen?
Kyk, kan ek voorstel dat pas wat mos nou natuurlik, ek weet nie van die ander manne nie. Ons is almal dierbares. So ek sal like Pastor Oscar mos nou wat in leierskap is.
Can you hear Pastor Oscar?
Yeah, nee, you guys are breaking up. I can hear what you guys are saying, and I can't hardly hear what you guys are saying. I wonder if I shouldn't just to the other network, because I can't hear you. You guys are breaking up terribly.
Okay. Maybe you can go onto the other network, and when you come back again, and then we can just give you a minute or two maybe to explain.
Yeah, just give me a minute or two. I'll join you guys now again.
Okay. Mr. Kern, Adrian, I don't know if you heard what we spoke about. Maybe you can just give your view on that one.
I think what we're seeing. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. What we're seeing, and I think I stand under correction. I'm not a pastor and anything like that. But what I'm seeing specifically over a period of time is that when a church is run by a focus on one person, then and there's no other people to, like, for example, let's use Jesus on earth. Jesus was on earth and he had 12 disciples. So there was this level of people watching what he's doing and holding him accountable. Oh, I mean, that's why Jesus had his disciples. They asked him questions. They put him to a test to determine whether he is who he says he is, if I'm not mistaken. And what is happening in our poor communities is that these fly-by-nights, they come with these promises. They come with a word, and they misrepresent the Bible. I think somebody said it earlier on. I can't remember where they pick on certain scriptures, and they play on these people's emotions of hope and aspirations to to attain holiness and to attain spirituality. But in reality, what they're really coming for is just for filling their pockets. And we see it especially in the poor communities. We see, I can mention Prophet. I mean, this guy's in another country right now. He came to our country. Many African prophets come here knowing they're going to the poor. They're not going to the rich communities. Just be aware, they're never going to rich communities and try this. They're only going to the poor communities because they know people are vulnerable. They know people are looking for hope. They're looking for a way out. And I mean, we all know, we all believe that following Jesus, following the Bible, following people that are supposedly apostles, pastors, etc., we believe that they will lead us to a better life, or lead us to a better person, for that matter. And when we pull into that, especially the poor people, they pull into it, they end up giving up everything. I mean, I can't understand how a community like Nova Park, as an example, gangsterism has been there for years. Um, our religious groups have actually backslidden themselves because they should have been at the forefront of changing the community. And I'm not saying there aren't churches trying to change the community, but I think Dennis said it. Why aren't our churches coming together in unity? I mean, we all serve the same God. We should be focused and visioned on the same, solving the same particular problems. Maybe there's sort of an institutional thinking right now, as Dennis said also. We're not thinking about why the church is there. The Bible says the church is there to save souls. And that is also gangsterism, changing the community so that we have more followers in our church and we have more youth that's leading a change in our communities. So that's my view on it. I think that you won't find the situation in Constantia. You won't find it in Greenpoint. You find it in places like Menenberg, Bonteheuwel, Khayelitsha, the most poorest of the poorest communities.
Awesome. And I like what you say. It is mostly the vulnerable people that they go in exploit. Because once I tell you I have a word for you and I tell you to leave your job, I'm going to pray for you for a job. And I have the looks and I have a car that match my looks. Because these guys come into the community and they look like people that are prosperous, people that are really doing it, making it in life, and we are so vulnerable. They, like this lady said, what's her name? Abigail Page said, we are boring with this topic. But it's not boring when you hear that a lady, a mother or a father lost money because of a man of God. It's not boring when people go and sleep without food because they had to do what the apostle told them. So my problem is this: we have a problem if we see these things as boring. It's actually busy growing on the Cape Flats where churches has become a cult, and you must pay money, you must do this, and many of our people are poor. And when somebody give their last money to the church, they don't have maybe taxi fare to go to work. They maybe might not have food to eat that specific night because they gave the money to the church, and that is a big problem because the pastor said they must give it. And when lockdown started, that same pastor was nowhere to be found, and I think that is a huge problem, and we need to address this. Reverend, just your point on this one as well.
Yeah, let me say this first of all. Ek het nou maar net ingeklim, so I didn't hear what the guy said. But let me say this. I believe that the reason why our communities, especially in the poorer communities, is looking the way it is looking, it is because the majority of our pastors and leaders who stepped into the ministry, they are uneducated. They don't have any knowledge. The Bible teaches that hy sê dat sy volk gaan ten gronde weens a lack of knowledge. And don't get me wrong, a Bible school doesn't make you a pastor, it's a calling of God. But the majority of these guys that stepped into the ministry, they come from die smokkeljaard, van Gomsjaard, van die Daggajaard en hy is gebekeer vir 'n maand of 2 and then he starts a ministry and a church. Now we have these wicked leaders that ordains these guys into the ministry for money. And because they are paid to ordain these guys, now these guys come with their flashy collars and elke oudjie dra nou 'n kolle en 'n togga wat lyk soos 'n Kersboom en elke een wil net 'n ou byte kan wees. Ek is apostel, ek is die now the other day I called the other pastor. I was introduced as pastor. I called him, good morning, pastor. He says to me, wait, you don't call me pastor. Ek is 'n apostel van die Here. Niemand roep vir my pastoor nie. You see, these guys, they are crazy about titles. And I believe, and this is the way that I was brought up, a church is as strong as the leadership. If the church leader is strong, the church will come out strong. If the leadership is corrupt, the entire church will be corrupt, because when a leader is corrupt and I am a member and I see that that leader is corrupt, I will stand up, I will take my family, and I will move out. Now, the problem that we are sitting with, too many guys are stepping into the ministry without the calling of God. And that is why they're messing up the ministry of the Lord.
Yes, that is so true. Titles has become something very big and popular. Jy kan nie meer vir die man sê hy sê die jaak en die hy's nou 'n apostel of is 'n bishop of wat ook al. But this is what I also want to talk about. The calling, brothers. I mean, when you say you have a calling on your life and you've been called to do this, how do the church know that you were called? Because many of these people, they weren't called. They placed themselves there. As you know, it's like going for a management job. So I know Pastor, I know Dennis, and Dennis know Reverend Oscar, and I'm looking for a job, and now Dennis organized me a job. But I don't have the qualifications, but because of Dennis, I'm getting the job. I think that's the same thing that's currently happening in the church as well. Men are not called, but they are buddies, and there's a salary for you. I think, when I grew up, I knew pastors didn't get a lot of money, and some of them didn't get money at all. But nowadays, I was thinking, I'm going to be honest with you. It was one day when I thought I must maybe become a pastor, because there's the guys are paying liquor money. But how do we really know that these people have a calling, on their lives? Because some of them hulle kan mense se lewe verniel because they don't belong there. I mean, a good example is many of our people in leadership in government. Many of them are not supposed to be there. And I think that's the same direction where the church is going. So how do we as people, how do we discern that this man or woman is really called?
Can I answer?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, this is what I believe. I believe that I was calling of God upon my life, and people who came across, people that I've met in my life, they've only confirmed it. There was a time when I tried to rebel against the calling of God, but yet I was steered back into the ministry. I am 12 years in the full-time ministry. And I work in one of the poorest communities in Cape Town. I don't compel our people to pay tithes. I tell our people, pay, well, if you have to give, you give, because you don't give it to God, because God doesn't have a banking account. You give it towards the work of God. So nobody in our church is compelled, you must give your last, because the pastor wants it. I'm 12 years in ministry. I'm saying this, and I'm saying it because I'm very proud. For the past 12 years, I didn't collect one salary from our church. I've traveled the world. Not once did I go to our church and tell our people, no moet ons nou 'n bazaar when we must do this so that I can have money to go overseas. I've been around the world, and I can only remember once when I went to the US, where we had a concert, and I used that money as a ticket. And that was the last time I've been abroad for a couple of years, 3-4 times every year. What I'm trying to say to you is, if God gives you the vision, God will always take care of the provision. Now, you can hear a guy when he gets up and he speaks about money, and the way that he speaks about money, there's no calling upon his life. Because the God that gives you the vision is going to give you the provision. That is why we feed thousands of people out there. It's because God has given a vision and He's taking care of the provision. Just a couple of weeks ago, we handed out 2,500 loaves of bread with no money, with nothing. People just came into our lives and we just did what God wanted us to do. You see, so it's all about the calling from the beginning. They kan nie 'n dronkie nou wees en net maar jy pas nie. This is something that is not as easy as a lot of guys think it is.
I hear you. Dennis, do you maybe want to just add on there?
Yeah, I think the church has moved on to becoming like the world. They based on business modules and not on godly principles. If you go with the
That's
business
right.
module, when you're looking for outcomes. In God, it's not about outcomes, it's the income. It's what's put into you when you
Absolutely.
spend time with God in the spirit, when you spend time in the word, when you pray. That is the income. So when you speak from what God has given you, the nourishment inside, then you speak life and life in abundance. But you see, when you come like Paul, like Reverend Oscar said now, die ouens gaan daar op en hulle praat van geld. And the whole vision is taken away from God, and it becomes a business module. Because when I speak from the pulpit, you know what we still want to do in the churches, we want to put in the right sound en ons stemme change ook sommer as ons praat, man. Ek weet nie of het waarom 'n priekstem te kry ook nie, man. Maar die mense dan priekstemme ook. If you want to pray, you give God more. Nee, man. Be real. God has called you at the point where He called you from, right? I look at Paul. God called Paul at the time where Paul he was educated, but then He also called the fishermen where they were, and He used them at the point where He called them from. So you can't be a chameleon, man. You can't be one thing and blend in. You're not blending in. You must walk in your purpose. If you know the plans that God has for you, walk in your purpose. And I don't think a lot of leaders are walking in their purpose. They just walking in wanting to grow into fat cats. Titles. I believe a leader is the one without the title. The biggest title you can have as a leader is a servant. And so I'm asking, where are the servant hearts in our leaders?
Awesome, awesome. Adrian, this is your opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. I agree with what Dennis is saying. I believe that our churches have moved towards away from being a temple, a place of worship, place of learning, and giving people the necessary sort of an Afrikaans voedsel, spiritual feeding, to more of a business, like you must see some of these pastors, and I'm not I'm not going to mention any names, but they actually on television say that they need to show that how can they be like normal. They need to wear the flashy clothes. They need to drive the cars to show that that they are a person of God, and God, they need to show that they have, because people of God must have. And I disagree with that. I believe that when we look at the Bible throughout, God takes people to be first a servant. David wasn't the king first; he was first a shepherd boy. Jesus was the king; he was
That's
a
right.
prince throughout his life on earth. But he was a servant. He washed the feet of somebody else. He was there to. We are there to change lives. We are not there to absorb the resources from people and then enrich ourselves. That's not. I don't believe that's from God. And I think one of the biggest problems we face is that our there isn't somebody, there isn't and I don't want to bring politics in or government in, there isn't some sort of body that can actually look at these churches and say, no, but that church doesn't seem to be doing something right there. Let's go in there. Let's actually investigate. It always requires people coming forward, like this instance of these young girls selling biscuits or cookies or something. I mean, that's ridiculous. These young people have given up lives in the belief that they're taking the concept of this church forward and the community and doing good for God, and then they end up literally being used, exploited for one person to gain money or gain riches. And I think there needs to be something done. I don't know if there's like some sort of statutory pastors forum or Christian organization that can actually monitor these things and actually go out there and do some sort of investigation in something like this. Because this guy is going to leave, and many of them leave. They've literally pulled out every penny out of a community that's already poor, and they take the money and dan hulle op pad weg, never to be seen again. And I think we need to do something about it. We really need to do something about it.
And you are so right there, Adrian. Hulle vat die mense se laaste geld, but we don't want to talk about this. We don't want to stand up against this. Ek haat dit om te sien mense sukkel in the community. We spoke about this earlier on. We have a lot of churches in the community. You have 30 churches maybe in one area, but we're not working together. We all have different doctrines. We all have different ways of doing things, and yet our community is going. Also community gaan agteruit because we're not really working together, trying to fix the community. We're supposed to be, like my mother said, a church is supposed to be a lighthouse. People must go to the lighthouse and they must get help there. But this is not the case anymore. Ek kan nie vir my aantrek om sop te gaan uitdeel nie. Ek kan nie vir my aantrek om die kerk te gaan skoonmaak nie. Daar is mense wat dit doen. So I think we need to look at, how do we get churches to work together? I can't talk about the mosque. I didn't grow up, I grew up in the church. I left the church. Ek het hulle gesê, ek is nie meer in 'n kerk nie. I was hurt. And I think that's the next question that I want to talk about. The trauma that the church causes in many people's lives. In huwelike, there's cases that where pastors, comes into marriages and they break these marriages up, How do we speak up? Who praat ons nie goed? Some people feel that if they speak up, the pastor is not gonna like them anymore. If they speak up, the pastor is gonna curse them. I mean, Andre, you can maybe speak about this. People were told that the pastor will curse them if they walk out of the church. But how do we stay strong? How do we stay strong? And how do we stand up? Maybe you want to answer this one, Andre.
Stanley, first and foremost, man, I just think that for far too long that we have been dependent upon a man to lead us. And we know that the veil was torn in two, man, from top to bottom. So ons moet pastore en die apostles en almal, ons moet vir hulle respekteer. I'm not saying we don't need them. Ons het almal vir mekaar nodig. But die ding is dat mense het vir hulle, soos iemand vroeër gesê het, op so 'n pedestal gesit that we think they are superhuman. We think that they are above us. As ek stil sit en ek luister na hoe mense die volk groet. Byvoorbeeld, ons gaat getuig by 'n openlig. En nou wil ek almal begroet in die naam van die Here. Eerstens wil ek begin met die apostel en dan wil ek, nou as ek almal groet, dan beteken dit almal. You see, the Bible leer vir ons, we should not show any partiality. We are all equal. Paul said, neither male nor female, Greek nor Jew. Because if we are in Christ, we are all equal. Die probleem is dat ons is part and parcel to blame because ons het vir hulle in posisies gesit, op pedestals gesit, wat God hulle nooit gesit het nie. Jeremiah praat van, these people, they prophesy en hulle doen goedes, maar ek het hulle nie gestuur nie. So coming back to your point, Stanley, is that My people, they perish because of a lack of knowledge. Ons het vroeër op 'n dag gepraat en ons het gepraat oor die feit dat baie van ons ouers as gevolg van apartheid kon hulle nie lees en skryf miskien nie, want hulle moet vroeg skool toe gaan en ek meen skool verlaat en gaan werk het en almal daai dinge doen. So as gevolg van daai is hulle illiterate. So hulle kan nie hulle eie briewe invul en sulke goed nie. So somehow het baie, en ek sê nie almal, ek is lief vir die kerk. Ek is baie lief vir pastors en as baie van hulle wat baie goed doen in ons community rondom Western Cape, oral in die wêreld. But you see, ons gaan altyd maar gejudge word vir die paar wat opmos. Because die rede hoekom vir daai ek persoonlik dink is omdat ons stil bly wanneer ons sien hulle mos op. Die probleem vir my persoonlik, Andre, is die feit dat ek het vir Pastor Oscar 'n paar keer gevra, mense in positions man wat die authority het en wat die krag het om iets te doen en iets te sê. Why are they quiet? Ek sien die jong mense take vir Guyton hulle in because Guyton ook nou party doen nou goed en hulle kry baie support en baie mense hoor wat die PA sê en die PA kry ook nou kerkleiers in en so aantes. Nou wanneer dit kom by sekere tye van die jaar en gender-based violence, dan wil almal die political parties jump en skryf en skree no against women abuse. Now why are they quiet and silent now when these girls were abused within the church? Is it because they were abused by some of their friends? Verstaan, en daai tipe dinge wat al die jare staan onder die mat gevee was. You see, now in this day and age that we're living in, we at least have a voice and a platform because it is my social media platform. It is my Facebook page en ek kan sê op my page wat ek wil sê. Ja, soos Pastor Oscar, ek sien hy is enige tyd as hy in die tronk gegooi, Facebook tronk, because hy is baie outspoken. You understand? Maar die kerk gaat nie vir my sê, ek kan niks meer sê nie. Because ek het Stanley na 6 pastors toe gegaan, voordat ek publiek gegaan het, en gesê, dis wat my broer doen. Almal het gesê, hulle gaat praat met hom. 'n jaar en 3 maande later, niemand het niks gedoen nie. So these are the kind of things that daar is hier 'n platform nie. Die CLR gaan 'n jaar vat, en in daai jaar wat hulle gaan investigate, gaan daar nog 100 meisiekinders ge-abuse word. I spoke to you yesterday when a mother phoned me, 62-year-old mother phoned me to say that her husband has been having affairs for the last 30 years. Ouderling in die kerk, leier, baie well-spoken. Oral wat hy kom loop en moor sê in die ronde. En weet wat sê die dierbaar is vir die vrou? Bid vir my suster, die Here gaan vir hom regbring. Wel, het is 30 jaar later, die anti-huil, want sy het al 4 huwelike opgemors. Haar kinders ween, want hulle is te skaam in die pad te loop, want die so se pa. You see, wrong doesn't become right just because we love the people. And that is the kind of things that we need to address and seriously, because wat moet gebeur? Ek het vanmiddag toe sien 'n ander pastor sê, as soon as it comes and it happens within our house, within our family, dan wil ons iets sê. What happened to my child is your child. As ek sien 'n injustice hier ook kan by my neighbor, en ek het die power of authority om iets te doen, en ek doen niks, then I'm part and parcel of the problem. You understand? So dis die tipe dinge staan wat weer, there was never a platform, now there is. Again, ek sê ook altyd, COVID het baie mense se oë in baie wys oopgemaak, because mense sterf van COVID, hulle sterf van baie dinge. But it het vir mense ook laat realize that, why must I die with the truth? Hoekom net doodgaan en ek het almal die dinge wat moet uitkom, wat baie mense vry kan maak. En weer, daar's baie victims wat nog altyd gevictimized word, as gevolg van ons glo nie vir hulle nie. We would rather believe pastor. I told you also last week, and that is why this is stuff that is very near and dear to my heart. 15 years ago, a lady came to me and said, I'm having an affair with a pastor. I didn't believe in Pastor Oscar. I didn't believe her. Why? Because die pastor wat sy van praat is my role model. Is everything I'm looking up to as a young man. Because ek was 21 jaar oud gewees. Ons het die baie role models in die Western Cape. Net na die Here toe gekom. Nou ek kyk op na die pastor toe. Hy kan niks verkeerd doen in my gesig nie. And so I didn't believe the lady. Because sy kan nie so praat van my role model nie. Hoe kan sy sulke goed sê? And I rejected her. 3 years later, it ended up this pastor had an affair with another woman. You know what? 2 weeks ago, I finally had the courage, 2 weke terug, because die dinge gebeur te veel en oral aan mekaar. I finally had the courage to phone the lady to say, I'm sorry. Sister, I'm sorry I didn't believe in you many years ago when you came and told me you had an affair with the pastor. And I asked her this question now, why of all the people that you could have gone to, why did you come to me? And she said, because I thought I could trust you, but clearly I was wrong because you didn't believe me. But thank you for coming to me now, 15 years later, and at least coming and saying that you're sorry. En dis die tipe dinge wat het normaal kom raak. Vir een of ander rede in die kerk van Christus, wat moet heilig wees, wat moet die government se conscience is. Die corrupt government lyk nou meer heilig as wat ons is. And that's the kind of things that needs to be addressed. And I don't hate the church. I love the church. I don't hate pastors. I love them, even those that are messing up. But ze kan nie opmos en dan nog altyd vir ander spreekie. Jesus had problems with hypocrites that preach many good sermons. But what they did wasn't in line with what they taught the people. And that is hoekom ek so hard is op die, because weer, my broer is my broer en ek is lief vir hom, but sy verkeerd het hy automatically reg geraak omdat hy my broer is. 'n Rypus bly 'n rypus irrespective van hoe lief ek vir die rypus is. You understand? And these are the kind of things. Stanley, some of the things that they're doing and others is criminality, man. Hulle moet opgesluit word in die tronk. Now they come and they go with the story, but if God forgives us, who are you not to? Wel, die Here vergewe vir ons, almal van ons, en gooi ons sonde so ver weg soos die ooste is van die weste. But that don't mean we should continue in our sins. As my sonde so erg is en die corrupt government wat ons in is wit om mense tronk toe te stuur vir dinge meer petty as wat som van die pastors aanvang, then why are we covering them? Isn't it the same, brother Adrian, like Michael Jackson ons weet wat hy gedoen het vir jare, but sy music is kwaai, man. You see, we love his music and therefore we will not speak out against him because kyk dis 'n gesiende man. Isn't it the same thing that R. Kelly did with the ladies for many years, but because hy's gesien and TD Jakes endorses R. Kelly, we allow him to go on up until 2 women came forward and then a third one. Nou hoekom moet ons wag tot daar nog victims is? Moet ek dit prevent voordat dit u kind is, die Pastor Oscar? Voordat dit u kind is, Brother Dennis? Shouldn't we prevent these kind of things before it is our neighbor next door? You understand? And these pastors, these kind of leaders need to know that they are men and women of God that will keep them accountable. We are nobody's judges. Also, I want you to keep me accountable. As ek die dag met 'n ander vrou in die pad loop staan en sy weet dis my vrou Lamisi, dan sit sy daar op Facebook, sy preek vir anders, but kyk wat vang sy aan. Why? Because you my brother's keeper. You understand? That is hoe ons vir mekaar moet accountable hou. But die ding is ons cover it. And why are we covering it? Miskien is daai die groot vraag wat ons moet vra. Dit kom alles ons en ek praat baie, but dit is om my hart is vol, man. Die mense word ordain of hulle los kerke want hulle wil nie submit nie. Dan begin hulle eie kerk waar hulle eie rules maak en dis waar die control inkom. Die nominations staan vir jare omdat daar sekere dinge is wat hulle in plek gesit het wat weg. You understand? But now they go and they start their own thing. Hoeveel van hulle het die kerke opgebreek met hulle gejollery nie en dan begin dit net 'n ander kerk. You understand? And now they're building on a foundation that is rotten. En dan in die kerk is daar net 'n gehoordery onder mekaar. Hoekom? Want pastor kan niks sê nie. Hoekom? Pastor homself het dit goed gedoen. And these are the kind of things that needs to be spoken about. Iemand het vir my nou die dag gesê, Andre, you have the courage to speak things publicly that we only speak around our coffee tables. But why is it all right to speak at around the coffee table and not to go public? Huh? So it's no hypocrisy, because what makes it any different? You understand? And this is type dinge wat allow die vrou huil en sy sê I want to commit suicide, and that made me cry. That made me call you, Stanley, and say, look here, we have to do something. Because nog 'n ma gaan nie vir my bel en sê dis wat my man doen nie. And the sad thing about all of this is she want me to put his name on social media. She want me to put photos. She sent me photos of him. She sent me photos of his mistress in his road. And she said, I want to go public because almal kyk mense sê vir my moenie my man expose nie. Maar niemand weet wat ek die gaan nie. Sad, man.
But
It's really sad. It's sad.
It's true, but that actually brings us to, we are so easy to say, but this man opposite the road or down the road abused his wife, and we put it out on Facebook and we say it's gender-based violence. But when the man in the church does it, it is fine. You're not supposed to talk about these things. Die is heilige top, dis heilige mense. But if you look at Cape Town today, how many churches are really breaking up homes? I mean, Andre, you know how many families are broken. You know how many mothers are, how many fathers are growing up, or children are growing up without fathers. This is a big problem. So the church is now actually not all churches, and there is good men out there. There is really men that are really serving and serving their purpose and working in the communities, bringing change. But there's also those men, which is Bible sê as jy man, dit is jy wolf in skaapklere. And that's the people, that's the men that we need to be careful of. And you are so right, it brings a lot of trauma. This happened before Facebook, man. This happened many years ago. This happened even in the 70s, 80s. We know of men in the church. We never spoke about it because your pa wil hier, sy moet praat oor hy leraar of hy pastorie, and somehow as hy man related aan ons kan nie praat nie, is 'n skande. And because we were taught that over the years, we kept the things quiet in the church because the church is a holy place. Yet, that man broke up many families. And you know what happens is, children are born out of wedlock in the church. And that man maak hy kinders groot en sy eie kinders groot. And that's a big problem. It's a problem that affects, not only the Cape Flats, but many other communities because we don't talk about it. So I want to come back. Should we start a culture in our own homes where we speak to our families and friends and speak openly about these things? Or should we just leave it and not touch the man because God will sort him out? I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I'm going to say die Here gaan hom uitsort. Sometimes we need to stand up. These men are criminals.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yes, sir.
Choose ye this day whom he will serve. You don't serve the leader of the church, you serve God. So
Yes,
there's where we fall short. You see, when we put that person on the pedestal, we put our trust and our hope in him. He is just but as feeble as I am. He will let you down. He will make his mistakes. So now when that person makes the mistake, dan step ons uit die kerk en dan sê ons, ja, maar waar's God in die? You kept your eyes on man and you didn't focus your eyes on God, the author and the finisher of your faith. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct you. Hoekom soek ons direction by 'n man? Man can't lead you. Man can't save you. God saves you. God leads you and God pulls you through. So when man steps out of line, being a leader or whoever he is, then he's not in the will of God. And then that needs to be dealt with. And that is where abuse comes from. Abuse comes from the church. Because for so long, they have put their topic on us and saying, okay, yeah, that's what they can say, that's what they can do. Wie vir jou gesê jy kan dit doen? No, man. Look, we've been given 10 commandments, right? That we have to follow. Ons kan nie dit follow nie. Nou follow ons tog 'n man wat vir ons sê wat ons kan doen en wat ons nie kan doen nie. Maar hy doen dit agter hy doen daar at the back, he does it. Keep that person accountable. Too long have we been quiet, but we now in a time like Andre said is where social media is open, man. Where things like this can't be hidden anymore. We can't hear women speaking about wanting to commit suicide because they feel that other people are going to judge you. At the end of the day, God is the only judge. God is the only judge that we're going to have, that we're going to be accountable to. Mense kan maar sê wat hulle wil. That is where abuse starts, when other people start talking into what we must do. your way, your gateway into addressing things is God. God your foundation, God your center post, Jesus your cornerstone. Jy kan maar wat 'n advocate wees man. Die advocates lieg ook man. Almal lieg. But God doesn't, when He's true to His word and He's true to who He is. Take that man off the pedestal. Take man off the pedestal. Yes, as the title of the pastor, we understand that apostle, hulle almal het mos nou titles. But a leader without a title is still the one that serves. Look at the one that serves, man, not the one that robs and steals and destroys. And that is what is happening in our communities. Ons is arm. Die kerk is arm. The institution of the church is poor. The reason why it's poor, because it's about the I. The I must die so that God can be glorified. Dit is al wat ek wil sê, want ek gaan aangaan ouens, maar ek gaan maar liewerste nie daar stop.
Okay. Reverend Oscar, I'm going to give over to you. Maybe you can also jump in here. Okay, I think we lost Reverend. Reverend, your mic is off. It's on. Can you hear us? Okay, there is no sound, Reverend. There is no sound there. Okay, let me just, Andre, I'm going to give over to you, and maybe we can just see what is wrong with Reverend.
Andre, Eka.
Yeah.
Ja, jene die vat my nou regtig terug na my jong dae. Ek het opgegroei in Church of the Nazarene en I was 'n goeie pastoor, Pastor Nathan. And the Reverend said that you know, you need to have education to become a pastor, or you need to follow some sort of teaching. And I hope he doesn't mind. He passed on many years ago, but this was I remember him always preaching about him being an alcoholic. He was a bad person. And the Lord saved him, and he went to Bible school, and he became a pastor in Overpark. And I grew up, you know, admiring this pastor, seeing where he came from. He always give us his testimony of why he was down and out. And that pastor never earned a lot of money, I know for a fact, but he kept the church together. He kept the congregation together. He did as much as he could in terms of the church. And his family was part of the church, and there were families that, you know, built the church, and it was a small church, and the small things, how he grew the Sunday school, how he grew the youth, the building itself. And for me, that, if I must really look back, that is not anymore in our communities. You know, it's a church isn't a like, I'm gonna go back, it's not a business. It's a community-based organization. It's like a non-profit organization. And the centerpiece of that is around not trying to, you know, make money, but trying to grow a church that's actually growing in community, that's trying to change things in the community. I mean, youth for me is an important part of all our religious facilities. And why are so many young people not pulled into our churches, or not pulled into even to mosques and stuff? I had a conversation with a gentleman, he was in school with me, and I asked him, why is there such gangsterism? Why isn't the mosque doing more? Why isn't the churches doing more? And he said, no, we speak to some of the gangsters. And I said, no, man, the church and the mosque should be speaking to each other. You know, the imam and the pastor must be speaking to each other, because we're all following the same God. We're just doing it differently. So we all should be trying to make that change in our communities. But I think we're working in silos, we're living in silos, where the pastor becomes like, I think as Dennis again had said it, the centerpiece of everything. And I personally think that if I see somebody do wrong, if I've done something wrong, these 10 commandments, if I've stolen, I need to first confess that I've done it. And some of these things, like you say, are criminality. How can we just, you know, cover it up? If it was any other person, they would go to jail for stealing. I mean, they would go to jail for whatever other reason. Adultery, common. It's like I've been hearing throughout this conversation. pastors having affairs with people, and even in the instance of the assistant of that story, why are we not saying anything? I mean, for me, it's very simple. Over time, I've started to realize. I always ask myself, how do I know the Holy Spirit is giving me, discernment? It's a simple thing. If it's wrong in the Bible, it's wrong, no matter who you are. I mean, Jesus, when Satan sort of tempted him, he knows it's wrong. We should know what is wrong. So why is a pastor being exempted from that very thing that he's supposed to be preaching to communities or to his congregation? But he's allowed to do these things. He's allowed to, commit adultery. He's allowed to covet the next person because that's what they do. I've seen people in some churches where the pastor actually entices other congregation or other members of other churches to come to him. And this is all about money. It's not about growing the church or making that particular church bigger, but it's more about getting more people in so that there's more tithes, there's more offering. And I really believe that we need to, as a church or as Christians, we need to go back to the basics. The basics are the Ten Commandments. The basics of these are theory. You can when somebody does wrong, you can chastise them in love. That the Bible actually says that you are supposed to. You're supposed to. If and my wife always. She will tell me when I'm doing something wrong, and I tell her sometimes you need to tell me when I'm doing wrong because that's love. Keeping quiet isn't love. I think Andre said, "Still bly is nie liefde nie." Still bly is eintlik you actually contributing to the
Yes.
decay, the moral decay within that church, within the community. Even you're actually manipulative by doing that. You are turning against what you believe in as a Christian, what we are following and striving for in terms of reaching our goal of, getting to that place where we see Jesus Christ. So if you keeping quiet, and I'm glad this thing happened now, this cookie thing. I was gonna say Cookie Monster now. I'm glad it happened because there are many churches that are many people in churches that are keeping quiet for what's happening, and it's not ruining just the church; it's ruining families.
That's
Stan,
right.
it's
That's right.
ruining families on families. So we need to start speaking up. We cannot keep quiet because it's traumatic. People are children are seeing things, and then we ask ourselves why is the next generation doing something, and we're like, no, maar hy kon net 'n goeie, hy sê min te wit. Sy pa is besig met iets of sy ma is besig met iets. So he's
Yes.
learning things, and because we're not open about these things, we're not getting to a point where we're breaking the generational curses. And
That's
that's
right.
also important. We need to speak about that these things are happening in our communities where the church will be changing things. They are adding to those curses. They are adding to that generational repetition of poverty. Why? The church would be uplifting the community, creating opportunities through the will of God, because God wants us not to live in poverty. But because we have leaders that are only thinking about themselves, our churches are not the vehicles for change anymore. And that's what's puzzling me. They're supposed to be the vehicles for change in our communities. They have become white horses. They become just buildings where one person is potentially gaining and a couple of his friends are getting reward out of having a church. It's a business. It's just a
Yes.
business.
Awesome. Reverend Oscar, I see you are back. There's a lot of valuable points you guys are mentioning. So I'm just going to give over to Reverend Oscar quickly.
Yeah, thank you. I've heard some of the things that the guy said, other things I didn't hear. But I want to say something on the hypocrisy side. There's a lot of hypocrisy within the church. A lot of people, a lot of leaders are the biggest hypocrites that you can get. I, for instance, am reminded of a guy that is now called an apostle. One year we went to his church, or we went to a church where I saw this guy, and he said to this young lady in the church, he's a married man. He said to the this young girl, "Come to daddy," and the guy and the girl ran and jumped onto him and hold him, and I said, "Don't you fast go." And I said to my wife, I can clearly remember, I said to my wife, "This is not healthy. this is fornication. This is adultery that's going on here. And I went to the pastor of the church and I said to the pastor of the church, Pastor, dis is hoerdery wat aangaan die. Dis is gesond nie.
Mm.
And he said to me, no, I'm seeing things. 3 months later, the same girl is pregnant by this
Oh.
guy. And then what happens is this guy is an apostle today. He left his wife. Hy los sy vrou. And he marries this young girl. And now he has the audacity to write books about relationships and marriages. Nou wie is hy om vir my te vertel van marriage en relationship wat sy vrou kan gehou het nie. Maar hy is by sy tweede bord kos nou en it is fine met hom die hoerdery waarin hy lewe, and then he wants to tell everybody about how they should love, how they should be married. You see, this is happening in the churches on a daily basis. I know of many stories in churches. I've witnessed adulterous relationship. I actually stood up in the church one day when this one pastor came with his new wife, his old wife, sat in the church. I was invited to this campaign. I went there and I got up. I told my family, let's go. Ek gaan nie luister na die man preekie because he cannot preach to us. You see, the problem with the church today is I believe that people sit and listen to these guys. If they don't have an audience, dan gaan hulle nie op die pulpit klim nie. But because we give these guys the pulpit, we give them an audience, en nou dink hulle so right en wat hulle doen is reg. It is not right at all. You see, because and these adulterous relationships in the church, it is elke dag words van iemand wat in 'n hoerdery betrokke is. And the saddest part of it is that the congregation of a specific, or the specific congregation, accept the pastor and his new wife. They accept him and they allow this thing in the church, and that must stop. How can a church or the church or leadership fix a community when the leadership of the church are fornicating and are bound in wickedness?
I like how you ended, Pastor Reverend. How can we change communities if we need to change ourselves first? And I think that is the problem. You know, I'm gonna go. I just want to stop with the last theme, and then we want to end off. A lot of these churches are now running to politics, like you mentioned it earlier on. That is a big problem, because now we're using our people in our church to vote for this specific party. This has been going on for many years. You know, I remember from the early 2000s when parties came in and they will come to churches, and that church will now be used by that pastor, and that pastor will get money. That reverend, whoever, will get money, so these people can vote for the church, for the political party. But you can see now, now it's voting time. Just see how men are now also using the church. I mean, you have pastors starting their own political parties and using their church members to get them to vote for that party. So if they have a certain amount of votes, they get into parliament. And I think that is another big concern. You know, how do you guys feel about this? You know, using our people once again, using our people so that we can prosper.
Yeah, can I just come in there and say something? Do you know that it amazes me because the Bible says clearly that we should not murder, and abortion is considered as murder. These political parties agree with abortions. The Bible says that homosexuality is an abomination. They agree with homosexuality. There's even some Pentecostal pastors who marries gay same-sex guys. They are from the pit of hell, but they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And as long as the congregation is going to be quiet, dan gaan die man net aan met waarmee hy aangaan. Time has come for the congregation to stand up and say enough is enough. But because the majority of people in the church, hulle word gelei deur hulle meeste van 'n pastoor. Nou alles wat hy sê is reg. Our people don't even read Bible. We don't stand voor die Gees lei vir ons en ons hoor wat die Gees sê. Hulle moet 'n slag Bybel lees, and then they need to compare whatever is saying and whatever is written in the Bible, and then they will come to the facts. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. I'm just going to give over to Dennis.
Yeah. Again, what are we looking at gaining when we go with the political party? We're looking at making ends meet for ourselves or building ourselves. That is the pastors, the leaders in our church. And man, ons bou die kerk bou op die verkeerde grond, man. We're building on sinking sand. And it's sad. It's sad. It's like the politicians. Ons weet hulle praat klompie nonsens want hulle glo nie is hulle self nie, man. And now we still, our leaders in church, they follow this nonsense and then they give this doctrine to us and we almost like, yes sir, no sir, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, 3 bags full sir. We take these things on. Let's separate ourselves from those that is leading us to damnation. It's time that we rise and we stand, man. Stand for something instead of falling for everything. En ons val so maklik vir alles. These leaders that is misleading us, speak up. You have a voice. You have a voice. Speak up. If you're going after the political things, man, ons raak verlore, man. In order to impact a community, we need to show community. I'll always leave with a question. Can people see community in the church? And if they can't, then we're not impactful. All those 101 churches in Manenberg, if we can't show communities how to work as a community, we'll never be impactful. The same like NPOs, NGOs in a community. They can 150 hit with the same goal, but if you're working in a silo, you're not going to be effective. You're not going to be productive. Then it means you're working for self. And the I must die again so that God can be glorified. That's my say, Stan.
Thank you, Andre. Then we're going to end with enough with Adrian.
The political thing, man. It's like all the other things. It's a whole thing about being covetous, being envious, because the ministers get a lot of money. So now pastors now mense nie kyk raak nou bietjie slim nou. Hulle kyk ek is nou by daai punt nou al. Ek los my wallet by die huis, jong, want ek weet die mense weet hoe om my R20 uit my sak uit te kry of hy R100. So ek los my kar ook by die huis want in som kerke is daar glad swipe machines. Hulle het glad die ou mense kan met hulle Sassa kar kom. So now they always looking for another means to make money. It's like my brother has said, it's a business. Coming back, that is why I say it's all about being envious. Being envious, that's the last commandment. Thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not be envious. And I always say this, because David coveted another man's wife, because when it comes to coveting in the Bible, it says thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's donkey, cow, and it mentions a lot of other things that you should not be coveting. The other commandments is simple. It says thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, honor thy neighbor, and amal thy goed. As one-liners. But the point I'm trying to make is that because David coveted another man's wife, he ended up lying, he ended up stealing, he ended up committing adultery, and then he ended up murdering. All because he coveted. Now, because it's the last commandment, we often do not take it seriously. Because it's mos kwaai om daai ding te het, man. Wel, as dit in die Here se plan is vir jou, en dan sit alright. But moenie wies omdat ek nou gesien het jy my neighbor 'n mooi kar, nou wil ek ook 'n mooi kar. Ek weet nie eens wat 'n neighbor doen om daar uit te kom nie. So daai se ding, man, we want what others have, and yet we want to call it blessings. You understand? The Bible is clear that the blessings of the Lord makes rich, adds no sorrows. Die ding wat ons nie wil op stil kom nie, is nie almal wat in die koninkryk van God geroep is, wat God roep om te prosper nie. Som van ons het hy geroep om net so te wees soos ons is, en daar's niks verkeerd daarmee nie. You understand? For we know also that the love of money is the root to all kinds of evil. Daai vers eindig hier, het sê, and some in their greed have drifted away from the faith and have pierced themselves with many sorrows. So it's all about envious, greed, and a power struggle. Ons wil in control wees, ons wil mense control. Yet wat het ons teacher gekom? He came to serve and he came in to be humble. Die mense praat van humility, maar hulle so vol pride soos net die Here alleen weet dit. They sit in the best seats when it comes to churches. Hulle wil honor hê en dit bly honor. Maar Here, help ons asseblief. Die mense ly honger hier onder op die grond. Ek wil afeindig met die quote wat ek gehoor het toe ek daar by aan my bishop was, wat die man 'n statement maak en dit ruk my aan mekaar wanneer ek dit hoor. Dat hy sê, when Christ walked the face of the earth, he fed 5,000 people. One man fed 5,000 people. Today we have 5,000 congregation members that is feeding one man, the pastor and his family. And that is what ons moet change, man. Ek bly appreciation services, dan is dit hulle birthdays, dan is dit first fruits, dan is dit hulle kinders se birthdays. I'm not saying we shouldn't honor them. But ons kry swaar. Hulle gaan nie die goed doen in Bishopscourt nie. Hulle gaan nie die goed doen in affluent areas nie. Why? Because wat gaan hulle die mense gee? Daar wat die mense nie het, hulle het geld daar. Wat hulle kon doen dit hier in Mitchells Plain, Elsies, Bonteheuwel, wat die mense arm is. Why? Because ons is easy targets. We are gullible. Because we also want the nice car that pastor is driving. But ons besef hier is ons betaal vir die kar.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of things that honestly we should no longer just sweep it under a carpet. It needs to be spoken about. And they, again, like I said earlier, they need to know that people are speaking now. So they must be careful. En as daar anders is wat even die wil gaan, dan moet hulle weet, hey, jou vrou gaat vir Steen bel, vir Oscar bel, of vir iemand bel en sê, hey, my man, so. As hy nie wil worry, die Matthew 18 principle sê, you first go to him. If you win your brother, then you've gained him. But as hy nog nie wil hoor nie, vat hom aan voor die raad. As hy nog nie hoor nie, bring hom Facebook toe. Steen die hulle gaat praat met hom.
Okay, ek gaan nie daaroor praat nie, maar ek sal vir die manne sê, Adrian, wat die Joseph van die end of us, brother?
Thanks, Dan. Was ek laaste?
Sy is die laaste ene, ja.
I want to end up with this verse because I think it's something that we all doing our various capacities. Stan, me, Reverend Andre, Dennis, and many other people. John 15 verse 13 says, "Greater love has no other than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." Now, I just want to end up in saying, if our pastor, if the pastor that the church that you're at, is not doing this, is not taking every effort to make a difference in the life of his congregation, then something is wrong. Because it's a selfless, I believe, following the Lord, especially in the leadership role, it's a selfless commitment. You taken on, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily quickly take on that responsibility, because that means I have to be selfless. I have to be a servant completely, not 10%, not 50%, 100%, because I'm supposed to almost give up my whole existence and follow the will of God. And that will can mean various things. And we know that many of our pastors are not doing that. I can tell you with certainty, many of our pastors are not doing that. They pull themselves into this position for not this reason, not to follow the Lord to that point where you are completely giving yourself over. And that capacity. I mean, Job is a good example. He followed the Lord where he was completely, like, I mean, I always admire the thought process of how somebody like that could have gone through so much adversity and still serve the Lord and still, pursue the Lord. So, in ending, I just want to say that our people, me, I'm a citizen. You stand. We need to start again. We need to start being honest with ourselves. We are saying we are Christians. We are saying we are serving the Lord. Serving the Lord means being honest. Honesty with ourselves and honesty in the fact that we need to start saying, Pastor, I've heard this rumor. Is it true? And confronting them. We need to start coming, because these things are impacting our communities and impacting even the will of God. People out there looking badly at us as Christians. I'm sorry to say this, people. They are looking at us and saying we are hypocrites, like Reverend said. And we need to change the status quo about it, because our God is loving, our God is faithful, and we as the leaders need to show that side of things, not what we're getting in the newspapers, not what we're getting on social media. There's so much that a lot of good leaders in our churches are doing, and because of this bad apples, it's just diminishing all that God stands for and all that Christianity stands for. And I just want to end up with Paul being Saul. Saul was a bad person. And I'm saying that I'm not judging any pastor. All I'm saying is that you need to be accountable. Just like Saul, he did many bad things, and God turned his life around. But if you know they say there's a method of sin. When you know what you are doing, you're intending on sinning. That is extremely wrong. That's extremely wrong. It's not even a mistake anymore. You intentionally trying to steal from somebody. You are planning to do things, and you are actually replicating or indoctrinating this idea that you are a leader, or you are a leader in the church. Then there's something seriously wrong with you. And I actually feel sorry for you, because I mean, I'm not God, but I wouldn't want to be in that shoes where you actually where you hurting people to a point, and you misleading people to a point where their lives are being destroyed, and you gaining from it, and you saying you are a child of God, and you're leading a church. So pray. I think prayer is also important. I think on Saturday, right, Stan, as men, we need to take our space. Not just, I mean, these pastors, but within our homes, within our communities, we need to take our space as Christians, as God-fearing people. And I always say this to myself when I'm a bit confused about whether I'm doing the right thing or the wrong thing. If God says, the word says it's wrong, it's wrong. There's no compromise, and every Christian should follow that. As die woord sê is verkeerd, dan is verkeerd, en ek weet is verkeerd, en jy weet is verkeerd. So hoekom is dit dan nou reg vir hom? So ja, dis my laaste woorde.
Thank you so much, guys. I think we should talk about this. This is a very sensitive topic to talk about. I will probably lose a lot of followers, but it's fine, But this is things that are keeping our neighborhood hostage. Things that are, keeping us from prospering. We always talk about the gangster factor in the community. We always talk about the poverty factor, but we never speak about the spiritual, the people that are using Christianity or whatever religion, in keeping us back. Because I have Muslim friends, and they tell me what happens, and even so, not only should we talk about the church, but how we as men are going to take back our communities. How are we going to start? Where are we going to start? I know I spoke to you guys, and we're going to start this Saturday. Maybe Dennis, you maybe just want to tell us what we're going to do, because I'm very excited for what's going to happen this Saturday. We're going to start somewhere. It's not only going to be on Facebook, but we're going to make it work. We have to make it work as men. So just give people a bit of an idea what we can do this coming Saturday.
Okay, so Saturday we're meeting on the Nantes, that's in Silvertown, Athlone area, between 10 and 12 p.m. And it's men coming together, and we're gonna pray, man. We're gonna pray for our homes. for our families. We're going to pray for our communities, society. We're going to pray for our leaders, be it in politics, our religious leaders. We're going to pray that we as men take our rightful place. So we first start off with saying thank you to God because we're still alive. We've lost so many loved ones over this period, and we're still losing loved ones. I don't think there's anybody that can say they have not been affected by this COVID. So we're going to thank God that we're still alive. And then we're going to fall to our knees and we ask for forgiveness, us as men, for not taking our rightful place. We have been created in the image and likeness of God, but I don't think the image and likeness of God is seen in us. So if we can come together with this unity, God commands the blessings. We come together, we pray, and the Nantes is a nice man. That is church, man. God has shown me in this COVID period that the church is not four walls because we couldn't gather at the churches anymore. And then He gave me the vision of when the restriction was lifted, get men to go pray on the Nantes. And when you stand there, you stand in the presence of God because you see the trees, you see the mountain, you see the skies, you hear the birds sing. How can that not be church, man? So we're calling men to stand, man. Stand tall when on our knees we fall. Let's stand for one thing instead of falling for everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And anybody's welcome. We want to invite our Muslim brothers. We want to invite anybody can come. It's not like I said to you, we're not going to make it about religion, but we're going to make it about men. We all were created to pray. We all were created to give thanks. And we want to come together and we want to start in Silvertown and move our way across the Cape Flats. We're taking back the Cape Flats. And we're doing it so as men.
Yeah, I like what you're saying this time. Just one thing. It's not about religion, it's about relationships. Let's build relationships. Religion causes a wedge, it causes division. Relationships build. You, my brother, you, my brother. There's no, there's my brother because there's a Christian in name, man. There's my brother because there's my brother.
There we go. There we go. Brothers, thank you so much. It was a long session, but I think it was worth the chat. We can have more of this. And we're going to get many men to join us. Let's take back the community. Let's take back our rightful place. And not just talking it, but doing it. Gents, thank you very much. And thank you for making yourself available. I know it's late. So thank you very much, Adrian, Andre, Dennis, and Pastor Oscar. And our viewers, thank you for the comments. I know a lot of people won't agree with this topic, but it is needed. It's needed in a time like this that we talk about these type of things. Gents, thank you so much. And have an awesome evening.
Thank you, James,
Cheers.
man. Thank you, man.
Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Adrian and Andre, Dennis, and Pastor Reverend or Reverend Bogart Oscar. I know it's not a very good topic always to have is about church and politics, but we must talk about these things. And I know some of you can hate me, but it's fine. I want to see our communities better. I want to see our communities work together, and we need to address the white elephants. We need to address the topics that nobody want to talk about, because it's those things that we hide that later on, becomes an obstacle. And if we don't talk about it, how much we respond, we always keep things quiet, and that is what our parents did, our grandparents did. You're not supposed to talk about certain things, but we need to speak up. We need to talk out. When a woman are being raped, we tell them to speak out, or being abused or whatever. But when you bring the church in there, it's not gender-based violence anymore. It's not rape anymore or abuse. It's now the man of God. So we need to talk about these things, and we need to stand up. Otherwise we're gonna fall for everything. So thank you so much. Please do join us next time. Regan, everybody's welcome. We're gonna be in Silvertown. I'll post the flyer just now. After this, Silvertown is 10 o'clock till 12 p.m. Everybody's welcome. We are talking about change. We're talking about taking back our communities, and we're starting this movement and we're going to grow it, and we're going to go all over the Cape Flats. We are going to take up not only the Cape Flats, but we believe all over Cape Town, and we're going to unite as men, and we're going to do the things that are needed, that we're supposed to do long time already. So we're not only going to talk about these things, but we're going to do it. And I want to encourage men on this platform. Ladies, please invite your husbands, to send them to come and join us. It will only be for an hour or two. And from there onwards, we want to build relationships, and we want to come into communities, feed our people, and see how we can better our communities. Some men are broken, and that's why we want to reach out to other men so we can tell our stories and we can share with them, because that way we can help our young men become better young men, because young men just need somebody to listen to. And that is why, we as men need to stand up and go into communities and be that role model to other young men. Guys, have an awesome Wednesday. It's almost Friday. Tomorrow's Thursday, so have whatever's left of Wednesday. Enjoy it and be safe. God bless you guys. Cheers.